Okay, Budget and Appropriations Committee reconvening. We've got 3 segments, 6:30 p.m., Cleaning and Beautifying the City, DPW with the ECB and BCRP Horticulture, then an hour of water service, and then an hour of all other services. In an effort to get Rebecca and Bill out of here as quickly as humanly possible, let's start. Obviously, we're going to start with Cleaning and Beautifying the City. If you guys could all do your presentations, please try to keep it to like 2 minutes a slide. And then colleagues, I would ask that we direct our questions, any questions that we may have, to Bill and or Rebecca, so we can get them out of here if there's no objections. So with that, Bob, I don't know if you want to start it off, another panel.
Sure. So this panel is Cleaning and Beautifying the City. So we've asked DPW to just cover one service that they have related to this, then ECB and also Rec and Parks to cover that. And then the following panels, there'll be DPW water services, and then the last one, DPW all other services, which includes trash collection, recycling, et cetera. So this is just 3 services, 1, 1, 1, and then we'll pick back up with DPW from there. So Rudy can take it away.
And Director Chow, can you introduce your army that you brought with you?
Sure.
And folks, Rudy, if you could just say their name and their position. If you could just either stand up or raise your hand, just so folks up here know who you are. Oh, and I'm sorry. So I've got Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilman Leon Pinkett from the 7th District to my left, Council President Bernard C. Jack Young, Councilman Isaac Gitzy Schleifer from the 5th District, Councilman Ryan Dorsey from the 3rd, and then to my right, Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton for the 6th District and Vice President of the Council, Marguerite Curran, staff to the committee, Poetry Deal and Karan Banks representing Mayor Kathleen Pugh, Kara Kunsford, Council President's Office, Rebecca from the President's Office. I think that's everyone. Okay, take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman Costello and City Council President and City Council members. I am Rudy Chow. I'm the Public Works Director. So let me introduce my team. And so when I call out their name, they can raise their hand so you can recognize them. Let's start with my Deputy Director, Dale Thompson. Follow with my Chief of Staff, Johnny Hemphill. My Chief of Fiscal Management, Troy Brockton. And Office of Fiscal Management, Shauna Williams. Okay, I'm going to move over to the Bureau of Solid Waste. Terry Ayres, who is the Chief of Staff for the Bureau of Solid Waste. Yvonne Moore Jackson, Bureau of Solid Waste. Robert Murrow, Bureau of Solid Waste. Jerome Ragsdale, Bureau of Solid Waste. And our latest addition to the Bureau of Solid Waste, Yolanda Kaysen for the street sweeping. We're very fortunate to have her come joining us. For our Bureau of Water and Wastewater, James Price, Acting Bureau Head. Mike Gallagher, Bureau of Water and Wastewater. And Jennifer Luckwick, Bureau of Water and Wastewater. And I have Carlos Espinosa, who is the Chief of Asset Management. Lauren Swirsky, who is our new Chief of Engineering and Construction. Kim Grove is Office of Compliance and Laboratories. And Ted Atwood, the Office of Sustainable Energy. And of course, we have Marsha Collins and from the Office of Legislative Affairs, and Kristen Oldendorf from the Ms. Collins' office, and Paul DeSantis, who is my Chief of Legal and Regulatory Affairs. So I'm going to keep my remarks very brief. I know that you want to get into the questions. So as you know that we are responsible for the health, environment, and economy of our city, and of course for the region by providing safe drinking water and keeping neighborhood clean and our waterway clean. This is accomplished through the hard work of my 2,700 staff members working efficiently and effectively to serve the city. Now, this evening, I'll be sharing with you the highlights of the department's $593 million budget, which covers $85 million supports our solid waste, which is the general fund, and $269 million and $191 million to support our water, wastewater, and water divisions, respectively. Anyway, the budget is healthy, and although I did not receive any of the needed enhancement that were submitted as part of the budget, $1 million was added. So let me quickly get into the service area 661. Service 661 is within our solid waste division that cleans our public rights-of-way and clears debris from storm drains. Now, activities include street and alley cleaning, mechanical street sweeping operation, and cleaning of the business district. The marine operation and graffiti removal as well. This is the budget that supports the hard work and dedication from the folks behind from my department to support the cleaning of the city. The overall budget within this service increased by $1.5 million mainly due to increase in city fleet rental and repair charges. Now, if we turn our attention to the performance measures, we can see that we are on upward projection for miles swept this year and for FY19. As you know that we expanded our street sweeping to citywide, aside from just the central district, and we are on target to basically clean 85% of our alley cleaning service requests. 85% as our projected target. Now, numbers are on upward swing, and of course, all these are supported by the resources that's available to us to carry out the work in terms of SR coming in from our citizens. With that, I'm going to turn over to Rebecca.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman and members of City Council, for the opportunity to be here. The Environmental Control Board is Service 117, and the purpose of the Environmental Control Board is to offer recourse for respondents who receive environmental citations issued by other city agencies through an administrative hearing process. Also included in our budget are funds for Be More Beautiful, which is the city's peer-to-peer network effort for beautification efforts throughout the city. And included are our performance measures this year are just for the Environmental Control Board. We're in the process of developing those performance measures for Be More Beautiful, but included for tonight are the percentage of first hearings scheduled within 60 days, which you'll see we've dramatically increased. We had scheduling issues previously, and we're working towards improving that. And then the number of violators who reoffended after completing our diversion program, and unfortunately there were 3%. We're aiming at 0%, and we're adding an additional diversion program to include first-time illegal dumping offenses that has a community service component as well as a classroom component.
Good evening, members of the council. I'm Bill Vondersek, Deputy Director of the Department of Recreation and Parks, here to talk about our horticulture division. And the horticulture division runs the 200-acre Silburn Arboretum, where we have various gardens, the Volmer Center, that's for rent. We have an aquaculture program up there in partnership with Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. We run the conservatory in Druid Hill Park. We take care of the plantings in front of City Hall in War Memorial Plaza. We take care of some of the plantings out on Northern Parkway, right by Pimlico Racetrack. And we're offering technical assistance for the renovation of the BW Parkway. There's about a mile-long stretch of BW Parkway. We're renovating the plantings, and we're going to be replanting out there this fall with support from the South Baltimore Gateway Partnership. The one thing I would point out to you is that we do get about 1/3 of our budget from earned revenue, and we're pretty proud of that, and that's from all the rentals that happen at the conservatory in Silburn Arboretum. Thank you.
So colleagues, just again, if we could focus on Rebecca and Bill's agency's efforts first, just to get them out of here. And we'll start with you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chow, we're still getting complaints about water bills that are not accurate and correct. That's why I scratched out, what did I scratch out? Timely and accurate, I scratched that out because we're still getting complaints of people not receiving their bills on time or not receiving their bills at all. I'm talking to Mr. Chow. What you want?
Does anyone have any questions for Rebecca or Bill?
Oh yeah, I have one for Rebecca.
Yeah, can we do those, Mr. President? I want to get them out of here. And Director Chow also has a presentation on water service. So what we're going to do, we're going to get Rebecca and Bill out of here. Then Director Chow, we're going to have you do your other presentations. And we'll just deal with DPW as a whole, if that's all right.
Okay. I just had a comment for Rebecca. I really appreciate you thinking outside of the box to help our constituents instead of punishing them. I thought that was a great idea that you had, and I just want you to keep up the good work and make sure that we keep our city clean, because those that need to be fined need to be fined. But you're giving them a second chance, so I really, really appreciate that.
Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Rebecca. I don't know, I guess you partner with some agencies, but lately I've been finding I've been having issues with vehicles and commercial trucks that park in residential neighborhoods, and they have been sitting there a while, whether on the property or on the street, and they drip fuel and oil and onto the streets and so on. Is that something that you can address? I know some of that might be transportation, but go ahead.
So the Environmental Control Board doesn't investigate or issue citations. We offer hearings for respondents who receive those citations. So I believe that would go through Department of Transportation, but I'm not certain about that. I would certainly recommend calling into 311 so that we can figure out where it needs to be routed, and then having the SR to be able to track. But the Environmental Control Board wouldn't respond. We would just offer a hearing if a citation under Article 1, Section 40 is issued.
Because I'll give you an example. There's this huge white truck behind an abandoned church. That abandoned church that has been abandoned there at that corner of Garrison Boulevard and Liberty Heights, and it's right there at an alley. In fact, the fire department is there, and then it's the alley. Then it's this truck that has been there for years, and it's.
Councilwoman, I think this is a DOT issue.
Okay. Well, I say that it's not because when I did a walkthrough, the police department didn't want to touch it. No one wanted to touch it because they said it was on private property. So how do we deal with things like that?
Because it's not the only. Yeah, it's not ECB.
Okay.
What happens is, Madam Vice President, is code enforcement have to issue a citation to the property owner or whoever that vehicle belongs to if it's on private property, because I ran across that too. So
Okay.
once
they refuse to do that, so we'll have to take it to another level.
Okay.
Well,
Because it's a vehicle on,
so all of the agencies are punting?
yeah,
Okay. Mayor's office? Can we get someone to can one of you guys get
And
with
that's why it's been there
Councilwoman
for
Middleton to
years.
get all
I
the
mean, this-
details?
we're talking about 3 or 4 years.
And Pete, Jim, and Kim can figure out who's responsible. Let's get this one resolved. Thank you, guys. Anyone else for ECB or Rec and Parks? Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bill, how much is being spent each year on wood chips?
By the Horticulture Division or the whole department?
Well, I guess DOT buys some too, so I guess if I wanted to get a comprehensive look, I'd ask DOT for theirs also. But right, because does DOT do the tree pits, or is that also that's Rec and Parks?
No, that's Rec and Parks. So we use our wood chips from Camp Small for that.
When I visited them recently, they said that Sean said that a lot of them were still being purchased because they were not uniform enough for the city to use
For tree pits?
for different things.
I don't know about that. Melissa might purchase mulch, if it needs to look really kind of tidy for certain areas, like in front of City Hall and things like that. But for everything else, like for all the city farms, we use stuff from Camp Small.
Okay.
For amendments, soil amendments for all the tree pits, we use siftings from Camp Small. For all the work we're doing on BW Parkway, we're going to Camp Small.
Okay.
Yeah. There are opportunities, though, as we discussed this morning. I probably spend $40,000 a year on playground mulch, and so if I can figure out how to, and I can figure out how to do it, grind the trees down at Camp Small and run them through a metal detector, and so I make sure that there's no glass and there's no metal, then I can use them on playgrounds. They have to meet a certain standard. The problem is that a lot of the stuff that I have down at Camp Small has got all kinds of, there's like chunks of concrete down there. There's, yeah.
And then on this first metric here, you have number of city farm plots rented and in active use. So that's how many are rented in active use. How many are not rented?
That seems redundant to me. Every single plot we have is rented. I know there's a waiting list.
Okay, that's how we've reduced the number since FY15. We had 761, and we've lost 46 city farm plots.
I'll have to find out why. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it looked like we have 731 and 14, 761 and 15, but now we're somehow down to 715.
Yeah. I know that there was one garden that we put in on Lawrence behind Pennsylvania Avenue that kind of went bust. We put that in collaboration with Parks and People, and if you go by there now, it's not really happening. So that might be it, but I can find out.
And can these city farm plots only exist on Rec and Parks property?
So far, that's the only place we've put them. I don't see why the model couldn't be expanded to other property that's owned by the mayor and city council. And I would take a minute to brag on it. This was a program that was started by Mayor Schaefer, and all we do is offer a little bit of support. We offer wood chips, we offer mulch, we take away the organic matter, and we offer water. And that is enough to keep these going year after year after year.
When you say offer water, does that mean that what if it's a vacant? What if it's a place where there isn't a very local water source?
We haven't had that problem yet because they're all our parks, and so we have, and even where they were vacant lots before, we've tapped into the existing water meter to be able to provide water.
And what's the minimum area that is required to create a site of farm spaces?
We've done some as small as, a city lot. I don't know what that size is, but whatever the kind of standard city lot is. There's a couple that are a few blocks away from Riverside Park at like Charles and Heath, and both of those are about the size of a city lot. But usually the bigger we can make them, the better, because there's efficiencies. If I can get 100 or 150 plots in one place, and then I'm sending trucks to bring wood chips to 100, or to bring mulch to 100, or to take away organic matter from 100, it makes it more efficient for us.
Okay, yeah, I did just see the Heath Street lot like last week. That was really small and impressive in how small it was.
Did a pass to go in the 11th district?
I say, man, I like to spend money in your district. Unfortunately, my district doesn't have as many offerings. Do we have like a pathway, like a clear process for like a community that wanted to have a city farm open in their neighborhood or nearby, something like that? Is there a clear process, and do we have the resources to help establish new farms. I know that also so when I look at most of them, there's chain link fencing around them.
Yes.
And I know from having spoken to other people in rec and parks in the past that my perception is folks think that chain link fencing is kind of expensive. And I'm just wondering, like, do we have real potential to readily develop more farm spaces?
I would say yes. I mean, the cost to develop a new farm is minimal. It's less than $100,000, depending, on how fancy you want to get. And yes, is there a pathway? Yes. People, all they have to do is reach out to us, and then we come and meet with them. And if we can determine that there's enough interested residents and we can find some land, then we'll go forward with it.
And then just a couple more quick.
How many more?
2?
That would make 6. Okay.
Well, there's other.
Can you do us a favor, because they have to go? Just ask your question, and you get your answer.
I'm not trying to build. I'm trying to just get some answers. That's all. Never mind. It's okay.
Ask your question.
I had a kind of a train of thought. I was trying to.
I broke your train of thought.
I was working through here.
I'm gonna do that more
somewhere.
often.
Sorry, man. Yeah, okay. So, hold on. So this, okay, hold on. So, okay, so this really does intersect.
You can tell we're delirious. We've been here for
This really does.
21 hours.
This
over the
really
last
does
2 days.
intersect horticulture and public cleaning and greening, things like this. So I have had a couple of meetings. We're all spread really thin like everybody else in the city. I have a community in like the Paring Lock community along Chinkapin Run, and I see that as an underutilized, undervalued, underaddressed place that has a lot of community potential through greening and potentially through horticultural improvements there. And it's also a place where dumping is frequent. And to activate that space through horticultural use would both add value to it and prevent a lot of the dumping. But it's a challenging community to organize people in. Does Rec and Parks, does DPW have a capacity for a collaborative approach to these kind of things that can fund that kind of community organizing to help build things? Because I've had meetings on site there with Rec and Park staff where it's basically like, yeah, it's a nice pipe dream, but we don't have any funding for that. Get the community to come up with the plan all on their own, and if you come up with a plan, then bring it to us, and maybe we'll see if we can somewhere down the line, a couple of years from now, find some funding for a thing that shouldn't actually cost that much.
Well,
No, we can do it. I mean, if you get me involved, and if we're talking about a community garden, and if you're talking about the area near Northwood
Yeah.
School, and between the land that the school owns right there and the land that we own, and I get Harold McRae, our community gardening coordinator, involved,
Real support.
we
for
can make this
community
happen, sure.
organizing to make these things happen in a way that that it feels like and really is community driven, in just a way that I don't have all of the capacity to facilitate myself, just with my little office and my little staff and no expertise in these areas. But I see it. We can work on that. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Does Rec and Parks have the resources to facilitate that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman, if I may just add a little bit more,
Yes.
maybe perhaps will be more helpful. Department Planning, there is a program about urban farming and so on and all that, and that program is through Parks and People. So there is an established process protocol out there. We can certainly connect you with the planning and alongside with the Recs and Parks.
Thank you.
I just wanted to let you know that you can get all the wood chip you want. The storm came, all the trees are down throughout our parks. I think we can take them wood chippers and get as many as you can, because when I ride around, I see it. And then it's kind of dry out there, and I'm so afraid somebody's gonna throw a match, and then we're gonna have a real serious problem. So if you could work on that, the trees that are down, I know it's a whole lot, and I know that you don't have the resources to do them all, but if you can get to as many as you can, that will greatly help us.
Sure, Council President. And I mentioned this morning that usually when there's a storm, the first thing we do is we concentrate on all the roads and make sure all the roads are passable, and then get trees off of houses and cars and things like that. And then we try and get back into the parks. And so sometimes we put our own property
In the
at the
back.
low, yeah, and but I definitely hear you. And between our forestry division and our park maintenance has a small forestry capacity, we'll get to all the trees in the parks.
Okay, and for Councilman Dorsey, Rebecca, you have funding that you talked about that he might can use from the fines.
Yes, and that is, thank you, Council President. We have a Care Lot program, and the application for this current grow season is closed, but I was going to reach out to you past this hearing to let you know that when that grant becomes available again, I'll certainly highlight that for you. It's up to $5,000 for community groups to care for vacant lots, and it's paid out on an invoicing process per lot visit, with a cap at 10 visits per grow season and a cap of 25 lots. So if they're, depending on what the plots look like, if they're lined up, it's something that would provide some funding, certainly not all the funding, but some funding. And then through Be More Beautiful, we can help pull in the different agencies and groups that would help to create and establish something like that.
And this is specifically for care of vacant residential zone lots?
Typically, yes. That's what we've had so far. Be More Beautiful just took on that program. It was previously in the planning department, and it was in the last 4 years, there were 9 groups caring for lots. We grew that to about 34 groups caring for just about 400 lots that are then taken off of DPW's mowing schedule. And they're primarily city-owned, mayor and city council owned, but there are some private lots that then we go through the process of getting approval from the owner of that lot if that's something that is an issue for the community that's not being maintained.
Great, thank you. The particular site I'm talking about with Bill is actually in a rec and park site, but I think that I could find places for this to be useful also. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman.
Okay, so, Sharon have one?
Just a question about the grant with the lot that you had mentioned. Is this different from the Adopt a Lot program that the Housing and Community Development offers?
It is. Many of those lots are also adopted by those communities, and so they are able to apply for Care Lot, and they've already adopted the lot, but some of those lots are not previously adopted. So we worked with Housing just to make sure that those lists are matching up, and we're not granting out money to a lot that is adopted by somebody else that doesn't know what's going on. But through the Adopt a Lot program, they're not receiving grant funding typically for this kind of effort, and so Care Lot is adding the money component.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
Can I ask one more related question?
Councilman Dorsey for
Thank you.
7.
8, maybe 9. When you're setting folks up with care a lot and things like this, are you facilitating them getting, like, what do they call them, garden setters set up? And I ask that because I know that that's been a discussion between DPW and Housing. The Baltimore Green Space has had some conversations around, and there being kind of a lack of standard language and standard communications process between DPW and Housing for whatever their individual respective parts are in that, and getting them set up efficiently.
I can't answer to that portion of the other agencies, but we are working with University of Maryland and their Master Gardeners program to set up a workshop and to also help implement what communities would like. And we're also looking at opportunities for beekeeping, and we've talked to somebody who can help with training on that kind of aspect. As far as having just a straight protocol of what does that look like, we're still working through that as we just got this program and grew it, and now we're trying to look at what our communities really hoping to do, because the first goal is to maintain. The first goal is to make that lot not be something that the city has to chase after all summer, essentially. The next goal is to what's next. We want to transform that lot. We want that lot to be something that the community can use. And so first we're working on making sure we have it down of just caring for the lot, keeping up with the grass. I mean, with all this rain, our groups are working really hard right now just to even maintain the level of the grass. And then we're working on the what's next as we close out the season.
And that next grant period begins when with the new
The
fiscal
grow
year?
season, our actual invoicing began in May, so it's running May to November. It might be more like April, mid-April, because that's usually when DPW's grow season is getting started, is mid-April. So the grant will open again at the end of the calendar year to be ready for the grow season.
Got you. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm done.
Colleagues, any other questions for Bill or Rebecca? Schleifer.
So, Director Woods, I just want to echo, I got nothing to say about stumps right now. I just want to thank you for your responsiveness and always addressing our issues in a timely manner. It's appreciated when we get a call on something we don't have the answer to, that we get a response as quickly as we do from you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Rebecca, thank you for everything. You're phenomenal. You really are. And Bill, you're great. But I really do appreciate the responsiveness. So, all right, guys, have a good night. Rudy will send you a postcard in a couple hours. Let you know how it goes. Director Chow. So why don't we run through, as I mentioned before, the rest of the briefing slides, and let's keep that in the 10 to 12 minute range to get through the rest of them, and then we'll get to council questions.
I had asked a question.
671. Okay, next I'm going to go into service number 671, which is water management. So service 671 supports the operational efforts for supplying water to over 1.8 million customers in the Baltimore region. As you know, that we serve folks outside of the city as well. This includes maintenance of the 3 watershed systems and the 3 filtration plants and our pumping stations. This fund is supported by our utility revenue, and the budget remains consistent with the FY18 budget of $86 million, despite of the increase in additional personnel necessary to support the effort. If you look at the performance measures, first of all, I just want to point out that there was a typo on there. The FY19 target for the effectiveness, the cost for treating the treatment per million gallons, instead of 333 for FY19, that should be 305. So in essence, what we're looking at is that in terms of the millions of gallons treated, we're projecting about 220 million gallons in FY19. And the FY17 actual, you see that 333, that's because it's a one-time charge. But if you reduce, take away that one-time charge, that number actually goes down to about 250. Oh, okay, so I was actually in the wrong one. Okay, no, 672 now, which is the water and wastewater consumer services. Now, this program we're looking at over $33 million, and the budget supports the utility. Basically, it's utility funded, and it's increased by roughly about $2.6 million due to additional 14 staff that was added to support the billing and customer support. Then these positions are added due to the restructuring of the division, coupled with the enhanced operating procedures. As you know, that we went from quarterly to monthly, and then certainly that increased dramatically in terms of the number of bills that get sent out on the annual basis. In terms of the number of account billed, we are actually on target for exceeding 98% billed. So there's 2% the bill that part of the council president's question, I guess I can perhaps address here a little bit. Number of bills that got held back due to, for example, if there were spikes in terms of the consumptions due to leaks that may occur on site and or on private property, which rather than sending out a bill that we know perhaps that is going to raise some concerns, we take the time to try to scrub through, we do verifications and so on and all that, which result in some of the bills that doesn't get out timely. But that is really for the purpose of trying to ensure that we get accurate bills out to our customers. The number of accounts is actually very steady. We're looking at about 215,000 accounts in the city. And then, of course, we got the additional 200,000 plus accounts outside of the city we support in the county. On service number 673, which is the wastewater management, 673 provides wastewater collections and treat about 253 million gallons of wastewater per day for the 1.8 million customers that drains into two of our treatment plants, namely Patapsco and Back River, which are also the largest plant in the state of Maryland. The overall budget increased by $1.3 million, which is attributed to the consent decree and expedited reimbursement program, and of course the treat roots, the root control in our sewer cleaning inspection program. And there is also a typo on there for FY19 for the number of dry weather overflows. Instead of 210, I mean, it should be 210 instead of 150. For surface water management service number 674, again, for FY19 goal, that should be 1,000 instead of 1,600 for FY19. Now, 674 provides for the protection, enhancement, and restoration or watershed of watershed within the city of Baltimore and the Chesapeake Bay tributaries through the water quality management and compliance measure mandated by EPA and the Clean Water Act. This service maintains well over 1,100 miles of storm drain pipes, over 52,000 inlets, and 27,000 plus manholes and 4 pumping stations and 5 debris collectors. This $24 million budget increased slightly over the FY18 operating budget. We have an MS4 permit that to comply by December 2018. So this budget combined with the capital stormwater will allow us to remain in compliance. And we, in terms of output performance, we are inspecting 85% basically for erosion and sediment control of all the construction sites within the city limits. For program 675, which is engineering construction management, this budget supports an engineering, of course, related to the design, construction, and management of our infrastructure and all of our assets, underground and vertical assets as well. Now, our efforts here work in conjunction with the nearly about $1 billion in terms of capital improvement going on currently. And the number of linear feet of wastewater, you can see is for FY19 is 2005, and that is part of the consent decree work. Okay, for service, is there 662? Okay, so for service 663, which is waste removal and recycling, that's part of the Bureau of Solid Waste. Service 663 provides household waste and recycling collection for well over 210,000 households within the city, and that's individual dwellings or multifamily dwelling, condominiums, commercial spaces, businesses through the 1+1 program. Now, the $30.6 million for FY19 reflects an increase of $1 million, which basically supports the Mayor's Violence Reduction Initiative, the VRI, where we are looking at increasing basically two cleaning crews. And in terms of performance measures, you can see that the collections, instead of 145, that number should be 154 for FY19 target. And then we are shooting for 95% in terms of service requests completed on time for the FY19. For service number 664, which is waste reuse and disposal, this is the operation of the Quarantine Road landfill and the Northwest Transfer Station. Now, I believe that the Northwest Transfer Station will have a great model in place to try to reduce illegal dumping, and is yielding some fruitful results for us. And certainly, I'm hoping through our efforts, and where we'll be looking for your support, that we can open up a transfer station on the east side of the city in the not so distant future. This service has $22.8 million operating budget. This increase basically increased due to many increase in contractual services. In terms of tonnage disposal, we're very much on target for the 270 tons. And then, of course, the number of the non-compliance MDE inspection reports, 25%. And many of these are driven from our Quarantine Road landfill. For service number 675, we went through this already, right? Went through the engineering construction already? And the last one I want to touch on is service 730, which is the public and private energy performance. You know that the energy office, or what we call a sustainable energy, is part of the DPW, and within this division, we seek to basically utilize technology in order to minimize the use of energy throughout the city, while seeking for renewable energy sources. Now, this budget is of $15 million, comprised of comparing to $16.9 million in FY18. Decreased slightly due to the realignment of some of the fundings. The performance output energy saving totaling 71 million kilowatts, and the FY19 revenue saving of well over $19 million. So that I just quickly ran through all the service programs, and certainly open to any question you might have.
Okay. Can I ask my 9 questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Question 1.
All right. With the water bills, I know that you said that y'all hold bills, but these are bills that people just not receiving. It's not because you holding them. I don't know what's going on with that, but you need to make sure you look into that. And with the billing system, have the billing system ramped up where accurate bills are actually going out?
Yeah, well, clearly, actual bills are going out, 98% of the time on a monthly basis. Now, as we changed from the quarterly bill, which we got 90 days, basically to get the bill out, and then do any kind of inspection, we got lots of time. But now, as we moved to monthly, that time crunched, is putting a bit of strain on in terms of city staff resources. That means we got to be able to quickly get out there. So that is something that we continue to ramp up. We continue to do improvement to. We recognize that the goal is try to get all the bills out within 30 days. But there, as we're dealing with, first of all, people questioning the accuracy of the bills, that we take the time actually literally walking people through, looking at the hourly usages, the trends, and so on, all that, explaining. And that took away a lot of staff time, and that's part of the reason why we're increasing, supporting additional 14 positions to that division, trying to provide sufficient resources.
Yeah, because those customer service ladies and gentlemen, they get it. I mean, them people talk so nasty to them because they're angry about their water bill.
Yes.
And that's why it's important for Councilwoman Clark's bill to have hearing officers, just like Environmental Control Board, so that our staff won't have to take the wrath of all these people. And I agree with Councilwoman Clark that we need to do that, and you should look into that, Rudy. And my second question is, I don't have 8, is I've been pushing the mayor's office to pull the energy office out of Public Works. This should be an agency that's a standalone agency because they do a lot of good work over there. I know that Councilwoman Steed and I had contacted that office that was falling short on funding for a cancer center on Monument Street. And because of the energy office, we called them, they went over there, and they was able to save them some cost saving through their air conditioning, their lights, and those kind of things. And also, at the hearing yesterday, the Department of Transportation talked about how much they saved them from really going into their capital project. So this office, I feel, should be a standalone office. I'm still in contact with the mayor about that office because this office can do a lot if it was freestanding and not buried in Public Works. Your thoughts?
Sure. First of all, there was a reason why Energy Office was shifted over from a standalone or from one-time standalone to part of the Department of General Services, and ultimately came over to us a couple years back. First of all, Public Works uses by far the most energy within the city. That's factor number one. And number two, we are the single agency that literally touches every consumer out there on every single day. There is no other agencies out there can match that. I mean, the minute that you wake up, you turn the water on, we are servicing you. And so the fact that, as we know, takes a lot of energy to treat water and take a lot of energy to treat wastewater. Now, it's clearly there's a lot of energy savings that could be yielded if we are paying attention to technology and perhaps using technology to help us to shave the usage in terms of the energy for treating water and wastewater.
Well, how many FTEs is in the energy office?
Well, first of all, the energy office previously was supported by basically contractual employee. Through my deputy director, energy office reports to. We are shifting, trying to get permanent positions established so we can retain institutional knowledge and continuity. So that's a shift as they came over to the Department of Public Works.
Yeah, but that's a reason why they should be freestanding, so that we can get them some staff, so they can save us more and more money, being out of Public Works. And it's not just Public Works that I'm talking about. I'm talking about other agencies where
Absolutely.
I feel like the parking authority, and I don't want to get off track, that the people write tickets should be right there.
Well, I call energy is a part of the Public Works infrastructure, and this department, Public Works, that, as you know, that Department of Transportation, General Services, Recs and Parks, one time was all part of the Public Works. So energy is part of a Public Works infrastructure. So that's why, I firmly believe it is at the right place.
I understand, but I'm letting you know that I'm pushing and trying to convince the mayor it needs to come out of Public Works.
That's fine. I mean,
Good. Pinkett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple questions. One, I wanted to dovetail off of Council President as it relates to the accounts. And this is probably a simple answer, but so the budget book says that under Service 672, it provides for timely, accurate reading of over 400,000 water accounts. But when you look in the performance measures and it says number of active city customer accounts, like for FY17, it's actual, it says 215,000.
Yeah, so we provide water inside the city and Baltimore County.
Okay.
So the combination of county and city is 400,000 plus.
So when we look at one of the measures changed, for example, number of bills produced during calendar month showing billing timeliness has changed from the previous measurement, which was a percentage. So I don't know why it was changed, but why, I guess, even as it relates to the, I guess, so the FY19 target is the actual number of city accounts?
That's correct. So basically, we're looking at, because this is, first of all, the output, we're focusing on city accounts only. We didn't talk about basically the department holistically handle 400,000. So we're very much honing on the city part. So there are 215,000 accounts that city accounts holds. And out of that, we're shooting for 98.5% bill on time.
Right, so we're saying presently, every month there's 4,000 accounts that aren't getting their bills in a timely fashion?
No, so the county is still actually on quarterly bill because we haven't switched them over to monthly bill yet. That's part of the ramp up and the conversion, bringing Baltimore County into the new billing system. We are working very closely with the county on that. So once that comes, once they are in our system, which we are forecasting by the end of this year, beginning of next year, we will go live with their Baltimore County account. Then all 400,000 account will be billed on a monthly basis.
Right. So I got that. So I'm not concerned about the county accounts at this point. Just as far as the city accounts, presently, do all of our city accounts get their monthly bill in a timely fashion?
98%.
Okay. All right. So my other question was.
Can I ask related to that? That 98%, is that the same 98%? Actually, you know what, I'm going to go back to you because I'm going to go down that line.
That's fine. So I mean, but 98% means that 4,000 accounts in the city don't get their bill in a timely fashion.
That's correct. They could be held up due to investigations, a variety of reasons.
Okay. That's.
Yeah, because we have actually encountering number of factors that attribute to us not able to get all the account bill. Some of them, like I mentioned earlier, because we want to do additional investigation, and some of them because we have actually encountered our citizens that had cut the wire that sent the signal to our collectors, and or we have cases where, for example, school demolitions. We have antennas on the schools. So when the school demolished, they forgot about we having an antenna there. All of a sudden, we lost an area that we're not getting reads. So there's a whole host of reasons why we're not getting the reads.
Okay.
And certainly our goal is to try to shoot for 100%, but there are daily stuff.
So my other question was along the lines that presently, Public Works is doing two major projects, one in Druid Reservoir and then the other at Ashburton. Can you tell me how many jobs have we created so far as a result of those two projects, and how many jobs do we anticipate creating?
I don't have those specific numbers, but I can certainly provide you.
Okay. So I'd like to know how many jobs have already been created and are anticipated to be created for both the the work that's being done at the Druid Reservoir as well as
Yeah, certainly
Ashburton?
they have to be conforming to the 51%, all new position hires and so on, all that.
Right. So
Right.
I just figured that it would be something that information that you would have handy.
Absolutely, we
because-
track them, and I just don't have it with me, but we can certainly provide
And
that.
so can you also tell me how much of the work that's being done there has been contracted to MBE, WBE firms?
I think it's 27% and 10%. Is that Lawrence? But typically, it's 27% and 10%. That's what the goal we normally shoot for.
I just want to know if we reached the goal.
Now, remember the contract, the construction just starting.
Right.
We got a number of
Exactly.
years to go through, so it depends on where the utilization of MBE is actually in terms of the overall schedule. If you take a snapshot, say today, are you at 27% or 10%? Maybe, maybe not. It could be more, it could be less.
No, I don't disagree. I'm just, and maybe I'm wrong. I'm assuming that whoever won the bid had to, present, how they propose to move forward with the project, who would be their subcontractors.
Correct.
What percentage of work those contractors would do.
Absolutely.
And so I'm wondering if even in their initial submission, did they submit a bid that had 27% going
Absolutely.
to
I mean,
MBE?
whatever we have required and whatever they have proffered is that's the base of, in terms of analysis of construction contracts, whether they're being responsive or responsibility analysis, and that's the responsibility.
And is there assurance that at the end of the project that percentage will still remain at 27%?
Well, that's certainly that's what we strive for, and then we're monitoring on a
don't get me
regular
wrong, I
basis.
understand. And I appreciate striving for it, but there's a difference striving for it and making certain that at the end of the project that the prime is held responsible for achieving that goal.
Correct.
I'd hate
So
for us to say 27%, and then at the end of the day we end up with 15%.
Right. So we first of all, we got inspectors out there. Okay, so the MBE percent for Druid is 20%.
So that's not 27.
No,
Okay.
and then the WBE committed is 8.17%.
And how about for Ashburton?
Is Ashburn on this?
So how do we not get 27%?
Well, it depends on, first of all, that's analysis done by NWBU office, right? So they're looking at the type of work we do and looking at availability, and then they assign the percentages associated with that. So it's not something we pull out of thin air. There's actually a calculation done by the NWBU's office, and then they ultimately set the goal for us before we advertise the
Right, but I mean, my perception of projects like these are that they don't happen overnight. It takes years of preparation for a project of this significance. So my thought is that if you really want to achieve 27%, I mean, you have 6-7 years to identify, a potential contractor to fill those percentages.
No, they have to identify all the subs
Right.
that satisfy the 20% and 8.17%. I mean, they have to, that's part of the award basis. If they come in and says, well, I'm not going to meet that, likely we're going to deem them unresponsive, and then they're not going to be awarded. So they have already identified the subcontractors that's under the general contract that add up to the percentages that they have committed to.
Right, but so did they commit to 20% or they committed to 27%?
No, they committed to 20%, but that's what we have asked them to do.
So what's 7% of the project? For example, what's Druid project? Is it like 300 million? Roundabout? So I mean, are we talking like $20 million between 20% and
Well,
27%? I mean, that's kind of a lot of money for MBE.
That's a garage and a half.
Were you an economist? Right? You do taxes?
Every year.
So in essence, while we're getting the number for you, let me just talk through. First of all, when it comes to construction, we have inspectors daily inspecting all the jobs. And then there is a daily inspection report that's generated. And we're looking at who is doing what. And then and that's how we track in terms of the actual performance. So for example, 20% committed, that's $4.3 million committed to MBE. And then for WBE, 8.17%, that equate to $1.758 million that committed to. And then the overall budget is $134 million. That's the cost of the project. So so that's what we're going to be measuring them on. Now, we're going to be monitoring them on a continued basis. So that means when they are off track, so when we're looking at their sub, they say, well, I'm subbing out electrical work. And let's just say electrical work now is to be done. And then we're looking at who is performing the work. And then if it's not the MBE they have identified, we're going to be asking questions. So in other words, is that we spent a lot of time in the last few years to try to get all of our projects. This is a monthly report that we put out. We're looking at our expenditure. This is the overall projection. We believe the expenditure is going to, till completion. We are tracking it on a monthly basis. And then let's just say at the end of the construction, they do not meet the requirement. They're not going to get a good report from us. So that means that could impact them getting future contract with us. Right. So there's actual teeth to them not meeting.
Yeah, but when you're doing a project like the reservoir project, and this particular contractor has got Ashburton, it's got Druid. Once they out of town, we're good. It's not like you calling them back in to do another reservoir.
Well, we have performance bonds and so on and all that. I mean, there is city protection.
So let me ask this. So hypothetically, say a portion of the contract was, for MBE to remove fill from the site.
Okay.
And so let's say somebody makes a decision that you no longer need to remove the fill from the site, but we'll have it stored somewhere in the park. And so now we don't need that, that MBE to do that service. How does that relate, or how does that work as relates to that percentage?
Well, that means we're going to have to, first of all, they will submit an RFI looking for us whether we agree or not. And then we got to look at from the cost perspective if there's saving to be yield. And then we're certainly going to be engaging MWBU office in terms of what does that mean in terms of the percentages. And then they're going to probably, if they're looking for exemptions, they're going to apply for waivers, and that's going through the MWBU office.
Right. So while they go through that, it just means that whatever that MBE work that MBE thought they were going to do, they're just out of luck.
It could be impacted. I would say, yeah. I mean, under that hypothetical scenario, they could be impacted. But the overall project,
which means that not only is the MBE out of luck, but those potential local hires that were associated with that MBE are out of luck as well.
But that doesn't mean the department would not put additional conditions, like say, well, if you're going to not do this, we may say, well, you need to sub out more in other area. I mean, that's when they're submitting a request such as this, is different than what they have awarded the contract with. I mean, that's a negotiation that has to take place.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President.
Okay, I'll just come to my office and show you. I wanted to really compliment your staff that was out there during the flood, cleaning up and doing all the things that we needed to do to try to help restore that neighborhood. I want to thank Dale, who came out. They did a fantastic job. I know a lot of times people complain about our public works employees, but they did a great job. And I just wanted you to know that so you can relay that to them. And I know Councilman Burnett is going to also thank you, as well as his district, I went over there, got about 9:10, and then leave till about 6:45. And I seen the great work that the staff was doing, and I couldn't let that go by without letting you know.
Yeah, I have gotten a lot of positive comments from a number of people, and basically stating how well the city agencies work collaboratively, and I know my own folks from Solid Waste and the Water Bureau, they work seamlessly, and we were very proud of what our folks had done out there as well. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rudy, can we go back to the water billing issue? With the 98% of properties are receiving their water bill on time, 2% are not, which is a total of approximately 4,000 properties. Is it the same 4,000 every month that are not?
None, no, not necessarily.
So is it, so of the 4,000, let's say, I don't expect you to answer this, of the 4,000 that were late for May, how many of those are late for June? Like, how many are recurring versus how many are just kind of a one-off, got lost in the mail or the printer did something funky?
Well, I think
Does that
first
make
of all,
sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I understand. I think it's a combination, so I don't have the exact number. Says out of 4,000 years, the what I call a monthly repeats, accounts that never get billed and so on and all that. Like I said, there's a number of factors that generate, and the reality from a best practices, from a utility billing perspective, 98% is an awesome number. I mean, it sounds like a lot, 4,000 account, but when you're really looking at the total number of customers we serve, I mean, that is well within the industry standards, being one of the best. And that's part of the reason why we're spending all this money, basically installing this new billing system. We replace all the meters so we can get hourly reads and so on and all that. Is try to achieve much higher accuracy and timeliness.
Yeah, I get that. And Jennifer is somewhere here, but I can't see her, but that's fine.
Yeah,
we talk far more frequently or more often than either of us would like. Jennifer and her team are great. So Jennifer, thank you for everything you're doing. I think I'm pretty frustrated, and I think a lot of us up here, colleagues, I don't know, by a show of hands, do you all get a lot of the, I haven't received a water bill in 10, 12, 14 months? And and when we bring them to Jennifer's attention, she ends up getting them resolved. I'm not looking to place blame necessarily. Why is that happening?
Okay, so first of all, even though that we have gone live, now remember, we're dealing with a 30-plus-year-old legacy system. Right. There's a lot of garbage in there. There's a lot of bad data in there.
But aren't we on the new system?
Yes, we have a new system. But as we pull the account over, now some of the accounts may be mislabeled, didn't get transferred. So this is part of the cleansing system.
Got it. So my next question is, what type of, because we're talking about 4,000 a month aren't getting posted or sent out on time. We're talking about a lot of revenue that the city is not necessarily missing out on, but is coming in late in terms of all three of the enterprise utility funds. What type of controls do we have in place to proactively root those out? Not Jennifer and what she's dealing with when we all come to her pulling our hair out, but who's going in there manually and checking, okay, I've gone through another 200 accounts today. I have another 199,800 accounts to go through to make sure everything's correct and perfect.
Well, that's part of her QA QC office. They do that, and then same time, the new billing system would generate reports for us. We can ask for what account didn't get billed, what account is owed.
That's what I'm curious. So that's what I'm curious about. That person works for Jennifer?
Yeah.
Is that person Jennifer? Is that person here?
The person is not here.
Can we bring Jennifer up just for a second?
Jennifer, come on up.
Thanks. So could you just, I don't expect Director Chow to know this off the top of my head. Can you just talk me through, give me a 1 to 1.5 minute description of the nuts and bolts of what your team is doing proactively on that QA, QC front. Oh, talking to the mic. Sorry, you're on TV.
Oh, sorry. So each month we have 15 billing cycles, and with each of those billing cycles, we have a certain amount of accounts that get billed each cycle. And we have reports that come out of the system that let us know as the 15 cycles are going along, which accounts are billing and which have not, so that we can keep up on and deal with the accounts that are not billing. So we have basically, once a cycle goes to bill, we have 7 days to get a read and get everything resolved with the account to make sure that it bills in that time period. So we have the billing manager and the billing supervisors are looking at those reports to see which accounts have billed and which still need to be cleared. There are some, with each billing cycle, there's billing exceptions that kick out, and there are some that we can clear very quickly. We have tolerance levels built into the system, so if an account is 250% higher or 50% lower than the last bill, it's going to kick out to say it failed the tolerance, it went outside those parameters. And so for some of those, if it is just missing the tolerance by 1 CCF or 2 CCF, we're going to go in. We have thousands of those that will fail tolerance just by 1 or 2 CCF each month. So we will go and we can do a mass clearing of those. But it depends on what the particular issue is that the system kicked it out
So
for.
let's say let's say the address hasn't received a bill in 10 months. How's that identified or flagged, unless it's individually brought to your attention externally?
Right, so we have a report that we continue to monitor and deal with some of these accounts that continue to be problem issues to get them resolved. So we have a report that lets us know when the last time accounts were billed.
Okay, my last question, Councilwoman, I'm sorry, and thank you for indulging me. I guess my last question is, if we have the QA, QC process, I would proffer that may not be an effective process because we're still getting these 10, 12, 14-month ones, and your process isn't picking that up. And I'm just curious why it may not be picking those ones up.
So with the reports that we're now starting to get out of the billing system, we had to go through a very significant process to start to get all of these reports in place. So we started getting these reports in place a couple of months ago to really start to identify all the different issues that we needed to be looking at. And it has just been, the system is more complicated than certainly the old system.
I don't want to beat up on you, and I really do appreciate everything your agency does, but that's been the recurring justification for why this has been broken for the last year and a half. And I'm kind of at the point where I feel like that's not necessarily an acceptable answer anymore. And we need to be at a point where we're saying, this is the percentage that are not like being caught, and here's why, and here's what we're doing to proactively fix it. Because every time we've talked about this, I feel like the answer has been it's a new system, it needs time, and we're working through the kinks, and we figured it out. And oh, by the way, there was this other patch that we had to take care of, or now you're telling me there's a new set of reports. But I feel like, and maybe we just have to come back in like 3 months and see if we're continuing to get them, and hopefully it gets caught. But I think if it doesn't, at some point we have to acknowledge that the system's been around for long enough, and there's something that is wrong that needs to be fixed, and we just need to do what's necessary to identify what it is that's specifically broken. Because there's something broken in this whole process, and that's not your fault or Rudy's fault or anyone, but there's something clearly broken. And what I've kind of been frustrated with is we haven't heard DPW acknowledge that. It's just been, we're looking into it, or things, now we're doing this, so it should be good, but the issues still remain. I hope you can understand my frustration, and again, I hope you don't take that personally.
No, no, I don't. I share the same sense of frustration because, you know, when we went live, we certainly have very high goal accountabilities that's set for ourselves. But the reality is that we continue to discover things that we don't know from the old system, right? So we have actually literally have accounts in the old system that never been built. Now we're discovering them. Now we're capturing them. So what, in other words, is that we have lost revenues from the past because what I was talking about just, you know, it's garbage in, garbage out, and then there's a lot of garbage in the old legacy system. Unfortunately, so many people touched it over you know, decades of time. So we are just as frustrated. And I know it sounds like a broken record, you know, but believe me, I mean, my staff, that we share the same sense of frustration. We want to get it right, and because, you know, that's what we wanted to do.
No, I get it, and Jennifer, thank you for everything. I appreciate it. Councilwoman Sneed, followed by Councilman Schleifer.
Thank you. So I'm just curious, for if you are if you own property and if you own a home but you rent it out, can you put the water bill in the tenant's name?
No.
No.
Because we are premise-based billing system. That means, remember, there's a tax sales system out there, so ultimately it's the owner's responsibility. So that means if the tenant, the owner rented out to someone else and says, well, change over to that name, we're not like the BGE and others is based on individual. We are basically premise-based. This is the property. Our service is going to this particular property, so whoever owns this ultimately is the responsible party.
So do we, if a tenant doesn't pay the water bill or doesn't let the owner know, then what happens? Like who?
Well, first of all, that's the tenant and owner relationships, right? The owner needs to build in some safeguards, some checks to say, yeah, my bills are on time and you're actually paying. That's assuming that, you know, that's part of their contract, that the tenant is responsible for paying the bill. Some of them are actually owner paying, you know, tenants just, you know. So, when we, for example, so if you are late, there's delinquencies out there, we basically send delinquency notices to the premise as well as to the owner.
We do.
Right, we do. So the delinquency notices, let's just say the owner lives in Florida, it's going to go there.
To Florida. So we do contact them to let them know that.
At the same time, we also let the premise know, so it could be someone else living there is going to get that notice as well.
Okay. My second question is, I'm just curious because we're talking about what they're doing in different departments around apprenticeships and just preparing our future. And I know you have a great program with the water, young folks working in some parts of the water department. But I'm wondering if there's other agencies that these young people can be a part of, such as, I don't know, billing or I don't know, CDL, sanitation, something.
Yeah. So first of all, the one that you're referring to is what we call a YH2O. So we started up with it's a water mentorship program because retirement and so on and all that. But I would tell you that we're very quickly now expanding it because we recognize there's a need on the solid waste side. As a matter of fact, very recently I made a presentation at the mayor's staff meeting to all the cabinet members of the programs that this is just one of the many programs we're doing out there, trying to get to our young folks and trying to letting them know there's opportunities, in DPW. And I would say, many of the other agency heads had touched base with me because they heard it, they're very excited about it. And I think the program, even though we started the water, but the process, it's transferable, it's universal. I mean, it really is about introducing young kids, mentoring them, let them do job shadowing, and introduce them to the work that we do, and then literally work with them so they can say, well, okay, this is actually the job. And that's how we do it, and that literally can be done by any agency for any jobs out there. And then many of the water mentorship graduates, they're not only in the water plants or wastewater plant, they are in billing systems, they are in accounting. I mean, basically, we open up the whole department and basically says that we are a holistic business, because we really have HR, we have IT, we have all kind of opportunities, and we can cater to all those needs out there.
But sanitation is an area that you are
Sanitation
expanding
is
to.
something that we are expanding towards,
Okay.
because that is because the turnover is quite high. So we thought, hey, that's actually is a good process. So we are actually literally expanding within the department ourselves, aside from other departments looking into our process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Councilman
you.
Slifer.
Thank you. Quick question. When will auto pay be available on the new billing system?
When will what?
Auto pay, where you can link it so that it automatically just charges your credit card?
Right. So first of all, the billing, that receiving a payment is actually a Department of Finance. So that means when you go online to pay through your credit card, it's actually going through the city finance department. So when you talk about, I assume you are referring to real time, I pay, and I can see my balance, that's reduced, because that's what majority, when we do online payment, that shares. That is something that we've been talking with the Department of Finance, because their system is not up to par. They are old, just like ours. Our billing system is 30 years old. The finance system is equally old. So there's a need to upgrade the finance system. And then at such time, then our billing system is fully capable. The issue is that we can connect to, because there is antiquated system out there.
So you're saying you can't connect your new billing system to their accounting system?
Not on a real-time basis. So that means, for example, if you pay your water bill, it will take them probably 3 to 7 days to reflect on the website says the balance has been reduced. And that's...
Well, even if that was the case, I mean, if somebody sets up auto pay, then it would automatically just hit their credit card or their bank account 5 or 7 days later.
Yeah, again, that's something that I'm not completely familiar with how old their system is or incapable of their system, but that's my understanding is that they need to be upgraded.
Gotcha. Okay.
Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to start with thanking you and your team for the excellent job on Frederick Avenue. I have got nothing but great feedback from constituents who, obviously it's a bad situation and it'll take them a long time to recover, but folks really felt like they were heard. They felt that this was a priority for the city to address their conditions as quickly as possible. So very much pleased about that. I did want to also sort of on that note, and I think, to take it offline for sure, but one of the things I wanted to discuss as it relates to that issue, we found that it's still being investigated, but believe that the cause was a stormwater inlet that takes water in from the Maiden Choice on Frederick Avenue, may have overflown. Basically, the capacity was just way too much for it to handle. But one of the things that was a little bit troubling to learn is that the MDE does repetitive loss surveys every 10 years, and this is not just on that particular inlet, but on our stormwater systems throughout the whole city. So this would be something that would be applicable to pretty much every district around flood mitigation, and they make recommendations, especially for areas that we know are likely to be flooded. One of the things I wanted to throw out there is just a quick question around what is being done to work very closely with MDE and our state partners to make the necessary upgrades for our stormwater inlet system and mitigation systems across the whole city, because we know that with climate change, this is going to be the new normal, and we can't continue to expect that these are going to be 1,000-year storms, but that these will be something that is a more regular occurrence, and this has to be more of a priority.
Sure. I mean, first of all, our storm system or our storm water system is designed for 10-year storm, and certainly this is not a 10-year storm. But I would say, from my perspective, is never let a crisis go to waste. So this is, matter of fact, Michelle Peugeot and I just having conversation this afternoon about. So the comments I was making was, we all know Ellicott City. It was a terrible situation 2 years ago, but they rebuilt it. But now it happened again. So I'm looking at that situation, and then I want to sort of use that as a lessons learned, because that I feel that if we just simply go in there, repave the road, and say, hey, everything is fixed, everything is cool, we really haven't solved the problem. So I really want to look at this thing holistically. So using that as an avenue because I think there's a lot of discussions about right now, because Ellicott City is about, well, gee, what kind of flood mitigation should we do? So what things we didn't do? Let's think outside of the box. So I want to take the opportunity. Now the state is involved, governor is involved, and to perhaps engage in that conversation. In our case here, I mean, clearly, we can build a wall, say, stop the flow from coming in, but that's only will cause downstream to flood. So it's not a patch thing. We could really got to think holistically. And I don't have a solution right now, but that is clearly something that we are paying attention, and we're focusing on, and we're trying to study it.
Yeah, I'm happy to take you on a tour. I actually climbed into the inlet with some of the folks from the planning department, so I could see it firsthand. And like I said, they indicated that this is something that is citywide that we really need to look into. So I'm thankful that I'm glad the conversation is being had. Unfortunately, under these circumstances, it's not the best, but to your point, and so I'm happy to be a part of that conversation. The other topic I wanted to cover is in a completely different direction, but somewhat related. Anybody that knows me knows I spend a lot of time going to find trash and illegal dumping. It is a huge priority for me. And looking in the budget book, there are, and this isn't any way exact math, but the best I could do, we have budget service numbers 661, 662, 663, 664, all relate in varying degrees to waste removal across the city. And based on my math, we're spending about $87 million. I'm sure that's not an exact figure, but in that ballpark on waste removal. And this doesn't include the work that Baltimore Housing does around investigations, putting up cameras, staffing. I'm sure it doesn't include your staffing and operational costs or capital costs as well. And what I'm really trying to get at is we spend a lot of money picking up trash, and a good portion of that is illegal dumping. What is the benefit of continuing to charge small haulers to dump in our two sites when I would imagine the revenue is probably less than what we spend picking up the trash illegally dumping that they're cleaning up throughout the city? And it's something that I wanted to throw out there because other jurisdictions are looking at ways to incentivize legal dumping, whether that's just our neighbors to the county where you don't have to pay a cost to dump. Some jurisdictions provide financial incentives. I mean, if we were in a position, I think it's something that we should be paying people for. If it's $1 a load or $2 a load, we should be incentivizing small haulers. And the reason I say that is because if I'm a small hauler, and the average job is probably between 60 and 80 bucks. If I got to spend $100 to register my vehicle, and if I have multiple vehicles, there's additional registration fees, then we're weighing the trucks when they come in. What incentive do I have to do that? Unless, and a lot of our guys do the right thing, and I don't want to paint all small haulers with that broad brush, but for the ones who aren't doing it the right way, what incentive do they have to not just kick it off the back of the truck and go to the next job if I have to drive all the way out to Quarantine Road or to the Northwest Transfer Station and pay money out of my profits to dump legally when I can just dump it or just dump it on the roadway to Quarantine Road? Why would I do that? And so one of the things I want us to look at, and a challenge is if we're spending so much money picking it up and we're investigating and all this money, millions of dollars that could be going to other things, why are we still charging folks to do the right thing?
Well, so I think part of this response is going to have to come from the budget director. This is a revenue. I guess city looking for this is part of the revenue generating, and I don't completely disagree with what you just said. You know, is how do we get people to do the right thing? Let's make it easier so they can do the right thing. And charging them could be an impediment that preventing them and so on and all that. I mean, I'm going to let Bob respond to that. I mean, that's a revenue issue.
Yeah, I hear your point. I think it's a good point. I think we would have to do the analysis to figure out if we were not to charge what the lost revenue would be, and to make sure we're offsetting that with some kind of savings where we wouldn't have to pick up trash. What that would look like, we'd have to work through that analysis, but it's definitely something we could look at. We could set up some time to look at a model and see what it would take.
And I'm happy to, if you could provide that to the committee, how much we are bringing in revenue from the registration and weighing, and how much we are expending. And again, I can only paint with broad strokes with this budget book. I don't really know if 87 million is the exact number, but that's sort of when I was able to go through it to piece together everything and that's not including anything from housing. So I would imagine we're not bringing in over $100 million in registration and weighing costs in operating those two sites. I would find that to be amazing. And I think we'd have a much cleaner city if that was the case. So if that could be provided to us, and maybe I'm thinking about it in the wrong way. You know, this is,
I
you
don't
guys
think
are
so.
the
I mean,
experts,
we would think about it the same way in terms of if there's a lost revenue, is there a way we can make up for that to be at least neutral or better, and there's, you know, less expenses somewhere, and there might be. In terms of the revenue side, yeah, we can show you how much is on tipping fees and for the fees that are paid in those sites, and we have to figure out the expenditure side. So we can send something, and I'd be happy to reach out to you and
I'd love to sit down. This is something that drives me completely insane.
Sure, okay.
Not this particular topic, but the amount of trash in the city, and you know, I spend a lot of time trying to figure that piece out, and just talking to haulers. I think this could be something that, if we can incentivize them doing it the right way, we'd be saving the city a lot of money, and we'd have a place. When we talk about livability issues, I mean, these are priorities that the mayor's identified as having a cleaner city, and I think that could be a step in the right direction. And I've done some research on other jurisdictions. I'd be happy, once we set something up, to show you some other jurisdictions that do it a little bit differently. The last question is a little bit shorter, and my colleagues heard this one earlier. It's high grass and weed season. For us, we get a tremendous amount of calls. The easier ones to deal with are, you know, city-owned properties, whether those are park spaces or real estate office or Parks and Rec. But the privately owned ones are much more of a challenge in tracking down owners. One of the suggestions that's been brought to me, and I'm sure my colleagues, probably not the first time you've heard this, but what are we doing in ways that can, one, try and bring in more local oversight? So, for example, I live in the village. I live in Evanston Village, and there's a lot of guys who make a living in the summertime mowing people's grass. Why not create a program where we're paying these guys to maintain either the city-owned properties or the ones that we know? You know, Jason Hessler and these guys in housing can tell you the list of houses that we know these people live in the middle or not coming back. They passed off, they passed on, maybe it's in receivership, but we don't own it yet. Whatever that process is, we know that there's some frequent flyers that every single year it's going to be 8 feet of grass that at some point we may mow. But it can take up to 7 to 8 weeks sometimes, and in the summer months that's probably 2 mows, and with the rain that we've gotten, I've been mowing my grass every week. So, you know, it's one of those, again, livability issues that I think if there's a way that we can provide some sort of incentive for our communities to step up to support small businesses whether that's through a grant process or an outright contract, getting these guys in the system, but any way that we can be a force multiplier to handle this issue, because it's a big one that we all deal with throughout the entire city. And I know it drives people crazy, but it's also, when we talk about rats, how much are we spending? Again, what's the cost of rat rub out? What's the cost of other associated health impacts that this high grass has on communities? And when we're doing it twice a summer for these properties, we're spending money in a different way while not directly addressing something that could be done pretty easily. At least it seems so.
Okay, so first of all, we have done analysis in terms of looking at all the city-owned, MCC-owned properties versus private properties. First of all, we still don't have a very clean list from HCD in terms of the private properties. But we're using our historical data. We believe we have a good number identified. So we've done analysis. We basically said is that if we want to cover all the MCC and all the private properties, what resources do we need? And then the analysis comes down to this. Our in-house staff can handle all MCC-owned properties on a regular basis. The revenue that's needed, or the cost that is needed to take care of the private properties, either through small grants, small contract, or large contract, whatever it is, it's amount to about $4+ million, which we don't have. Now, what we do have in the budget is about $800,000 that allocated for contracts, mowing contracts. Now, we got the extra $1 million this year for additional 2 crews for the VRI purposes. We're going to purpose that this year for at least helping the high grass and weed because it's going to take us some time to hire the people and get the equipment. So let's just say that's $800,000 plus the $1 million. That's $1.8 million that we, by July 1st, we can allocate towards the needs on the private side. That is still $2.2 million shy. So in other words, what I'm saying is that we are frustrated. We want to take care of the city. We want to make sure we take care of the MCC. And now our focus is on MCC because we are the property owner. We got to take care of that. So that's where my resources are going this year, right? The private properties, there's HCD process in terms of citations, in terms of measurement of the grass. I'm leaving it up to them. So they will be identifying to us in terms of private property that needs attention. And we'll deploy our contractors that direction. But I will tell you, we are $2.2 million shy. That's where we are, unfortunately. So what I'm saying to you is that I don't have a magic bullet, silver bullet to say, yeah, we can do it. And I will tell you, my folks work day in, day out. Many of them work long hours, 7 days a week during the summer season, trying to battle all these work orders coming in. And basically the analysis shows and demonstrates, doesn't matter how hard they try, doesn't matter how long they work, we don't have enough budget to do what we need to do. So they starting out of the gate is a lose-lose scenario for them. Because the city, other agencies, you all looking at us, says, well, we got grass that hasn't been cut. But we don't have the right funding. So that's why we explained that to the administration. I showed them the charts. We basically says we will, because we hear from previous years, there's a frustration that we don't take care of MCC. In the past, we deploy our resources to MCC and private. At the end of the season, we got a backlog. MCCs have a backlog, and private has a backlog. And we look like we don't know what we're doing. So we're changing the equation. This year, we will get MCC done. Because at least we know MCC, we as a property owner, we stay on top of it. So at least my folks can at least enjoy, they conquer 50% rather than 0. That's where we are, unfortunately. And if council members can allocate additional funding to help us close the gap, I welcome that. But that's where we are.
Yeah, we got to change the charter or something.
But that's-
but can't do that.
Well,
but
no,
I think
I'm just saying that. So I want to be very clear that.
But we
this
can
is
certainly
not-
advocate. I'm happy
I
to.
don't-
I think your point's been definitely heard. You guys work incredibly hard. Like I said, I have no issues with the solid waste staff, with the mowing crews. Very responsive, great job for sure. I have no beef with that. If it's a resource issue, I think that's something that we definitely need to talk about because, again, it's just something that, we had a lot of spirited discussion about a neighborhood investment fund. And one of the things thrown out there is, development is one part of the equation, and building new buildings and rehabbing houses is all very important. But, if I'm going to spend $250,000 at the Uplands, but my entire drive up Edmondson Avenue, I'm seeing 10, 15 inches of grass the whole way, there's not really much that's going to entice me to make that investment or make people want to buy into the city. And especially on these major arteries. Edmondson Avenue have 50,000 vehicles traveling back and forth every day. A lot of those people are driving to the county to leave the city. It's a bad impression.
We get it.
And I'm not putting that all on you. It's clearly a resource issue. I want to have the conversation because I think, again, it's a public health issue. It's a livability issue. It's the face of the city. The blight in itself is a problem that we have to overcome in the city. But I feel like if we can chip away at these small things like cutting grass and keeping it cut,
Yep.
I think that is a step in the right direction to rebuilding confidence that people have in the
Yeah,
city.
well, that's part of that. I want to take the time to at least explain to you exactly what is the scenario out there.
Yeah.
And then the truth of the matter is that as the city continue to aggressively demolish vacant homes and others, that means MCC-owned lots is going to go up, number of lots. So that's what I'm saying is that our folks were used to, this 1 million people used to live here, but they all got housed, they mowed their lawn and all that. With the people vacated, all these becomes on our shoulder, but our resources didn't go up. So it's, in other words, what I'm saying is that, it's an impossible task for us to be successful in, but these men and women that are working for me, they really, really try hard. And I would just comment on your previous point about the cleanliness of the cities and so on and all that. We want to, we certainly are welcome any ideas you may have, because I know my folks are frustrated, my team's frustrated because they clean an illegal dump, only 5 minutes later come back, it's like they never cleaned it. It's very, very frustrating. We want to use our resources smartly. Unfortunately, this uphill battle for us.
Thank you.
Councilman Slifer with just a follow-up question related to this.
Yeah, and so, we share the frustration also because, we're getting the calls and getting the brunt of it also. One thing I just want to point out to you, and again, I'm not putting this on your shoulders, but, as far as our constituents are concerned, they look at this when there's a city-owned vacant next door to them, and if their grass is high, they're getting fined for it, yet next door, the city property that we're not taking care of, they say, why can't you guys practice what you preach? You're going to come and fine me because I'm short on money. I can't pay a guy to mow my lawn, but a couple $100s to them over the course of, the season is the same as that $2.5 million that you guys are short proportionally to what our constituents and taxpayers are earning. And so I don't think it's an acceptable answer for these people to not only have to live next door to a city-owned vacant that's not getting the most basic thing, which is getting the grass cut, and then when they have an issue, they're the ones getting the brunt of it. So I just want you guys to take a look at that and put yourself in the shoes of the constituent who is going to, be saying, this is really a double standard. And so I know it's $2.5 million, but
No, but that's what I was just saying, that we changed the program. We will, all of our resources, our in-house crews will be tackling all the MCC-owned lots.
Right, and so
there should be no issues with MCC lots at all.
Okay, and then as far as the other ones also, last year we had I think it was the budget process also, we had a priority list that we submitted through the mayor's office. And so I'm not sure if you guys were the ones handling that, but if we can do that as well, because there are some properties like Councilman Burnett was saying where it's not in the city's hands yet, but the owner's passed on and it's a vacant home, and otherwise it wouldn't be taken care of unless we add those onto the list.
we can certainly take that into consideration. But again, what I'm trying to paint the picture is that at the end of the season, I don't want anyone says that MCC lots were not cut, because we are property owners, and it's, to your point, exactly. And so that's why we completely restructured the program. We separate the private versus MCC, and there's resources applied to MCC, which is our in-house crew, and external, in terms of private lots, will be through contracts, and whatever the contract dollars available to us, that's how far we'll go. When the money runs out, private lots is not going to be taken care of, but MCC will be done.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you. So we're like an hour into this session here. I have a number of things on my list here. I want to kind of fire off just a few really quick things and then have a little bit of a discussion about a couple things. And so it's just in the interest of time, I just want to try to get like the most quick, concise answers. A request, I'd like to have an account, a summary of the cost for paper billing, because I think it's valuable for us to understand how much we're spending on printing and mailing water bills. We tripled our cost for billing last year. I think that that's going to go a long way to make the case here that finance needs to invest in the technology, the ability to handle billing, paperless billing, opt-out, and automatic bill pay. I mean, it's 2018. We shouldn't be having this conversation. The entire Target website is built on Squarespace. Like, I think that we can handle this. I need to know how much it costs us to send bills. That shouldn't be a problem, right?
No problem.
Is that numbered? Do we got a number for that?
Number 50.
All right, thank you.
And on the billing side, our revenue collections division can, provide some feedback on the online billing options that are available today and what any hindrances are. So if you could put that on the list too, so we'll follow up on that.
So if you, Councilman, if you're referring to e-bills, meaning people getting their bills online,
yep,
right? That is a feature is yet to be rolled out.
I just want to know what
It's
what's
a
gonna
timing
take
issue.
for us to
It's a
stop
timing issue.
having to mail 12 bills a year now instead of 4 bills a year now, when even before switching to this new system, and I just think that the cost is a good motivator. I don't want to spend
Right, our focus right now is trying to get county go live, and then after that, then we're going to roll out enhancements. E-billing is clearly is an enhancement.
I still want to know what it's costing us.
That's fine.
Thank you. Do we have somebody, and if so, who is this, doing integrity checks on service requests for cleanup? I can tell you right now, one place that I have personally made a service request to have a pile of bricks picked up on at least a half a dozen occasions myself, and have made numerous calls and had communications emailed directly to DPW employees going, look, DPW came and did a cleanup here, and the guys must have just not felt like picking up a pile of bricks that my volunteers dragged out of the woods and put right next to the curb so that they could get picked up at a community cleanup. They're still sitting there today. So are there, and those service requests were closed. So is there somebody doing an integrity check on service requests? And if so, who is in charge of supervising integrity checks?
Well, ultimately is the bureau head of solid waste that oversees all the SR, all the staff, and so on. But
okay,
give us the address again, if you don't mind,
okay,
and I would certainly look into it.
And then one thing that you and I have gone back and forth about a few times now, and you've said is on the way, is a city versus county water billing comparison. We had one under the old system. We don't have one yet under the new system, and I am still having to explain this left and right to people. I want that document to be able to point to. Who is in charge of creating that document? You've said it's in the works.
First of all, I have the draft.
Okay.
It was ready to roll out, but you know that we discovered through the newspaper the other day that the county is forecasting increasing the water rate by 12.5%. So we don't want to put something out only to find ourselves we had to reprint all these again. So we are trying to iron out from the county in terms of when exactly they're going to be increasing the percentages in terms of water bill, and I would tell you that the preliminary draft shows very comparable.
Okay.
Actually, the county is slightly more costly than the city.
All right, so those are my kind of quick things that I wanted to get off.
Okay.
I want to talk about Loch Raven. One thing that I really never hear talked about here is source water protection and what goes on in places that aren't in any of our city council districts that are out in the counties, in Hartford County, Carroll County, Baltimore County. I'm just going to I'm going to relay something so that my colleagues here understand what I'm talking about. Many of the houses that surround the Loch Raven Reservoir are not on our city water system. They're already even that close to the city on well systems, so they're not even impacted by our water system and the water bills. They have no incentive to give a damn about the costs of water treatment or sediment erosion from the border of their property around the Loch Raven Reservoir into the water there, and how that increases our cost to treat water. In the beginning of 2016, a neighboring resident whose backyard backs up to the Loch Raven Reservoir decided that he wanted a bigger space to put a trampoline just outside his backyard and barbecue a little bit more, and took it upon himself to remove 17 trees in the Loch Raven property that's owned by the mayor and city council. These were on average 30-inch diameter old growth trees that by Rec and Park's estimation to replace per inch would cost $40,000. But because that property is ours but in Baltimore County's jurisdiction, in order to prosecute this crime, Baltimore County's state's attorney would have had to prosecute this. And because there was not the interjurisdictional collaboration or effort to make that happen, this person was not charged with that crime, and Baltimore City was incapable of recouping that $40,000 that we needed to reforest that area, and they got away with less than $1,000 in Environmental Control Board citations because that's all we could do of our own power as the city. I need to know that this is something that the administration is aware of, and that we are giving the resources to DPW and the political backing to DPW for the environmental police to really uphold what they're supposed to do there, because that $40,000 doesn't even account for the compaction of the forest floor from when those trees are then removed, which means that all of that area where trees were, it turns into mud runoff into the Loch Raven Reservoir that then increases the sediment there that comes into our treatment system that makes it more costly for us to treat water. It's probably thousands of dollars a year added on to our total water system costs, and that also translates into more chemicals coming into our water, into our bodies as we drink water as users of that water system. That we're bearing all of the brunt of that because of county residents enjoying the luxuries around Loch Raven Reservoir. And this kind of thing happens around Pretty Boy Reservoir, and it happens around Liberty Reservoir, and we don't have any system in place to recoup the value or the costs that are associated with recreational activities in those areas. So I want to know that in the coming year we'll be able to have some discussions about really starting to regulate recreation in a more responsible fashion in those areas. But I also want to know that we're not actively doing things in those areas that are damaging and driving those costs up. For instance, there is a location at Loch Raven Reservoir where there's like a beach grassy area that somebody is mowing. And if it's not our in-house crews, it's somebody that we're contracting to, because I don't think that Baltimore County is sending a crew in to mow in the Loch Raven Reservoir area. And then we are mowing grass right down to the waterfront, where if this were a privately owned farm, there are EPA regulations or whatever that say that you can't mow within 100 feet, I believe, of any source water area like that because of the pollution controls that we have put in place through federal regulations. We're actively violating those things by mowing that area so that county residents can go and use that for a nice bucolic recreational opportunity. And it's also attracting geese to that area who are pooping all over it, that is contributing to fecal runoff into our water system. We need to stop that now.
I'm so thrilled that you are such an environmental advocate, and because that's how we see ourselves. I mean, those reservoirs is very, very important to us, and I know we have worked with the county very closely for some time, decades now, in terms of having smart growth regulations over there in the county, all that, to prevent sediment erosion, runoff, and so on, all that. Now, can we do more? We clearly can do more. Could the city have more authority over that from a legal aspect of it? I think that's a conversation we need to have with the county. But that is city-owned property, but unfortunately is inside the county boundary. So there are, so it's not like we're living on an island by ourselves. We can set our own rules. And we do have watershed regulations, and we do have environmental police out there. And obviously, it's huge, huge area. You're talking about the 3 reservoirs. We don't have that many environmental polices out there to do the policing.
11 to protect our entire watershed system that extends into Carroll County and Hartford County and Howard County and all throughout Baltimore County. 11.
Right. So in other words, is that's part of what I guess share with you that our internal discussion is policing is one thing, and being a park advocate, teaching people to be good habits. Once you're inside this buffer zone, so there's that education component of it that doesn't exist right now, which is something that we're looking at the building. So it's like almost like a park ranger rather than police. Right now, my police are out there pulling speeders, driving through our, so it's not, but I got your point, and I'd be certainly happy to have more conversation with you, because we do treasure those.
So who's mowing the beach?
Say what?
Who's mowing the beach?
Well, I will find out more about that.
We need to stop mowing the beach now. That can't continue. That's us actively spending money to do things that are damaging to our water health.
Let me find out why that exists, what's the purpose, and so on. Then I can have more holistic conversation with you. Because right now, I
appreciate that. And then the last thing is about kind of stormwater management. I've had this discussion on a number of occasions, but the state regulation says that, the state law says that if you're doing development of, anything over 5,000 square feet, you're required to treat the first inch of stormwater from 100% of the impermeable surface on the site. And if you're doing redevelopment, like even if you're converting a parking lot into a building, you only have to treat 50% of the first inch of impermeable surface runoff. That basically accounts for anything that anybody would do in Baltimore City. And so we're shortchanging ourselves this stormwater management system that could be put in place over time as things are continuously redeveloped in the city by
just saying it's okay, we only ever need to force somebody, make people treat half of the water instead of all the water from the impermeable surface. Is there any reason other than making it more challenging or financially whatever for developers to redevelop property that we aren't saying we should be managing all of the stormwater? I mean, we're only talking about the first inch, right, of the impermeable surface runoff. Is there any reason other than basic profitability that we aren't saying we should demand better? We should have more stringent stormwater regulations. The state sets a minimum. We can raise the bar as a city. Where's Kim? Come on up for a second. So those regulations were set by the council or not? They're state regulations. Go ahead. Identify yourself.
Good evening. Kim Grove with the Department of Public Works. You're right, that does follow with the 2007 Stormwater Management Act, and that act was put into place to actually create an incentive for redevelopment. If you make it all equal, there is no reason that a developer would want to look at the city or any other currently developed space because it will be the same type of stormwater management. One other thing to make as a point.
Can I just say, I think that assumes that they're able to compare a lot right here in downtown Baltimore that is ancient grass versus a lot next door in downtown Baltimore that has had iterations upon iterations of buildings on it. One of those two things just doesn't exist. If somebody wants to develop in Baltimore City, they basically have no choice but to engage in redevelopment. So the comparison between development and redevelopment, if they want to do business in Baltimore City, is not really, it's not an existing comparison. There aren't really new development sites to speak of in Baltimore City.
But there are regarding the what we do for the regulations. Only a portion of the projects meet the full qualification for redevelopment. A lot of them are considered as quasi-new development. The other thing to point out is that when you are taking something that may be fully new development, meaning that there's not been anything there, maybe it's even wooded, when you are having to treat that first 1 inch, we're still looking at it as a loss. When you are incentivized to be doing redevelopment, it is nothing but a gain because you've already been having that runoff for years and it's already been providing that pollution load. So any kind of treatment is good. When you go into a new development situation, say if we have a forest patch in the city, and we have several of them, and we allow for new development, that is creating a load that even when we treat the 1 inch is not going to be 100% efficient in removing all of those pollutant loads. So we do push for redevelopment, and that 50% requirement does allow for an incentive for developers to be looking towards that. Plus, when they are looking at doing new development, they also have to do quantity control. That does not mean that if you are in redevelopment, you never have to do quantity control. If they change anything where the runoff may change its pattern, we hold them to quantitative control so that we look at that flooding situation. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I feel like it's an answer I'm familiar with.
To my knowledge, there is only one jurisdiction in the state that is requiring something more for redevelopment, and it's more of a suggestion than a requirement, and they actually have a very competitive housing market that is happening and development market right now. But I've not seen the full numbers of how many who actually meet the goal for their redevelopment, if it was a 1 inch.
So would introducing the kind of the heat of the market into the discussion, do you see a path where the most developed places in the city, the places where there's the greatest demand for development and redevelopment, could be treated as like an overlay area where we could increase the stormwater management requirements to some degree?
you start to take equity as an issue. When you start to geographically put something up higher than the other, that's going to be you could change the market in that way.
Well, I mean, we already
I
do
will
that.
tell you
We
though,
already do that in a lot of ways in the city, right?
From an
Downtown is
environmental-
C5 commercial. It has different zoning regulations than other
But
places.
from an environmental part, I will tell you though, since the 2007 regulations were put into the city code in 2010, what we have done within the service area for 674 by adding more staff, by working more with developers so that they understand it, less and less of them are going to fee in lieu. They are doing more stuff that is on site, and they are actually going above and beyond what is required for them. Added to it that we have the stormwater fee that allows for a credit for everything that is for things that are treated on site, and we have seen them doing more than what is required. So we're continually looking for incentives that will help that, as well as ways that we can provide not just an incentive to do more, but a pathway to do more, so that they understand what the limitations may be, what options are out there for resources, so they can actually not only install the practices, but also maintain them.
I'm just hoping that one day we're going to be tearing down the Jones Falls, tearing down 83, and we want to have good regulations in place there along watersheds like that.
Councilman Scott. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I ask any questions, go back to my colleague's point, Councilman Burnett from the 8th District, about the mowing and the cutting, and you needing $2.2 million. I would suggest that next year, Mr. Child, you do like the police department and just say you need it for overtime, and it'll magically appear in your budget. But to go back to another point, and to a point that we've been asking all agency heads, Mr. Child, Director, can you tell me if there is someone on your staff currently that is dedicated to making sure that DPW, which, as we all know, touches every single person that lives in the city every single day, if there's someone on your staff dedicated to equity currently?
Well, first of all, I mean, in terms of a dedicated staff, no. However, number of things that we do internally, every project we bid out, there is that equity issues going on that we're looking at, try to level the playing field. We're looking at we have programs for small businesses, for example, and trying to get the startups, helping them to understand how to do business with the city. So there's a number of programs that we roll out on a continuous basis to try to look at city as holistic rather than singular.
And thank you. And I would like to let my colleagues know that DPW is actually the first agency to respond and ask for a meeting about the equity assessment bill, and they wanting to understand, but also how they could be included. So I think that that's something that we should definitely know. I know that the chairman mentioned it earlier, but Ms. Child, I think that my colleagues, especially those who are now new to the council, know that pretty much they're going to spend a good amount of their time dealing with water bills. The question is very simple. When are we going to actually have a system that works for the citizens of Baltimore with their water bills? Because I've been here now, this is my 11th year, and my 11th time sitting through budget hearings, and each and every year we hear that it's going to be better next year, it's going to be better next year, and it hasn't gotten better. If you ask most citizens, it's actually gotten worse over time. And when are we going to be able to finally get our hands around that? Because the truth is that we have to deal with the backlash. We have no power to change anything involving the water system. Do you have an update for us? Is the system working? Why are so many people still getting water bills that are $3,000, $4,000? And Ms. Collins had to help me with a guy who got a $7,000 water bill for a place that didn't even have a water connection. When are we actually going to deal with this issue, and how are we going to do that?
Well, first of all, I would say, every day we're getting better. And I know, first of all, 11 years ago, I mean, the new building just went live, less than 18 months ago. So that's something that we are working towards. As I said earlier, there are continuous discovery of things that we don't know. as we migrate accounts over. But at the same time, I know when the citizens or customer come forward to say my bill is wrong, we generally being viewed as we were guilty until proven innocent. And that's where a lot of our staff time is basically walking people through, looking at hourly charges. Were you out of town? Perhaps someone was using your water. Start jogging the memory of the people. And that's the power of the system. Unlike in the past when people say, my bill is wrong. It could be 5,000, it could be 10,000, whatever it is. There's no way, the citizens basically say, there's no way I could use that much water. Right? That's always the starting point. We were never able to defend ourselves in that regard in the past. But now we could. We have a tool. We see the hourly charges. We see the hourly consumptions. We add up those math. We walk people through. This is how your bill come out to be. And I know it is, from a cultural standpoint, it is a shock because, first of all, not a whole lot of people paying attention to water bills. In the past, they just say it's wrong. And we write off millions of dollars in terms of the bills. And that's the dollar we didn't bring in as an enterprise dollar to help renew our systems out there and all that. So it's a culture shift. Now we are basically saying we have a tool that's accountable. We can demonstrate to you how water is being consumed. And then, of course, the issue comes down to is now we can explain it better. Now, citizens may still upset because they say, I don't get it. There's no way I could use that much water. Even though we show them graphs, the consumption, because the meter is a mechanical device. It's just measuring the amount of water going through the meter. So I would say, so I don't want to push a whole lot of blame that direction. I'm just saying that we are continuing to improve ourselves within our internal operations. But at the same time, we also recognize there's an education curve that we need to sort of bring our citizens in on. This is how you can monitor your usages, and that's why we have an online system that can monitor on an hourly basis if they choose to. So the tools are available. So I think fundamentally, as time goes on, as we look back, we're gonna say this is great. But what I'm saying is that now this is the transition time, culturally speaking, and not for nothing else is culture internally to DPW because many of my staff are learning the new system, understanding what accountability means, and so on and all that. So I know you are frustrated. I am eagerly to get there the day I can say everything is done, everything is good. But it is, it's an everyday progress. And that's the best answer I can give you. We're not giving it up. I mean, we continue to push hard. And because we know the citizen expect us to do it right. And we are clearly trying very, very hard.
And Mr. Chair, I don't know if a request has been made and what number we're on, but I would like to add a request to the list that if we could get from DPW, let's just do the last 3 fiscal years, and let's do both. We'll do both city and county to do a little comparison. The amount of disputed water bills in those fiscal years for both the city and county, and in the city, if we can break those down by council district, and the amount that the citizen was right versus the city being right, and the amount that was credited back to those accounts.
Can do that.
Because I think while we understand it, and none of us are saying that your folks aren't working hard, we're just saying that we're still dealing with the same volume, and sometimes there are mistakes that happen, and everyone that works here is human, so we're all going to make mistakes. But in these instances, sometimes these mistakes can lead to very severe consequences for the citizens who are dealing with this issue. And we just are not seeing from this end and from the end on the citizens a significant change in how we deal with those policies. I want to talk about leaks for a second. Of course, you know, this is something where I personally believe that the federal government who helped us build that infrastructure should actually do that again and help us rebuild the infrastructure instead of just simply talking about it and mandating through a consent decree that you do this stuff without any money. However, it seems to me that, again, this is a service where there's a disconnect because I've tested it myself, right? So if I am driving, perfect example, in the VRI zone, which is supposed to have someone actively looking for things, right? There's a VRI zone in Bella Edison on the border of Councilwoman Sneed, my district, and Councilman Ryan Dorsey. So there was a water leak at the corner of Bel Air and Parkside. So I said, well, I'm going to see, since the department has to be here every day, I'm going to see how long it stays that way. And weeks later, the police commander came to me and said, hey, did you see that water leak at Bel Air and Parkside? I said, yeah, I saw it, but didn't DPW see it? He says, oh, we put in a 311 request, but nothing has happened. So I got on the phone and I called Mr. Galloway, and then magically, the same day something happened. And we've had that happen over and over and over again. We've had, when are we also going to get to the point where those things don't require a council member, a police officer, or someone going to someone in your team, where every single 311 request will be treated just as if we did it? Because sometimes we're not going to see these things, right? In some instances, there were some instances where they've had water main breaks and leaks where they don't even call us for 2 or 3 days and they're without water, and they're just sitting there waiting for DPW to come and show up, and no one shows up until we yell and scream. It shouldn't be required for us to call Mr. Galloway to do that. It shouldn't be required for us to call Mr. Chalmers about trash being picked up. We have to have a more efficient agency, and especially when you're dealing with these leaks. How does that continuously happen, especially in areas like VRI, when we've been told time after time that no one even has to really make a request because the crews are going to be there anyway looking for those kind of things?
So the best answer I can give, first of all, that's a conversation I have with Mr. Galloway and certainly with Mr. Price, my staff. And it's, to me, every service request is equally important. But that's easier said than done because we have a huge, huge system, 4,000 miles of pipelines inside the city as well as the county. And it again goes down to the resources issued again. And, this past winter, in 3 weeks, we had 600 breaks. Yep. That's 50% of our breaks for the year. So, I mean, we have an old system. It leaks. And then, of course, in a perfect world, our crews are dispatched based on severity, right? So, yes, it's leaking. But if it's not, but compared to another site, it's not shooting out of the ground, it's the low priority. So the issue comes down to, do we have the resources to get to the low priority? Unfortunately, that's the issue we're getting at. Now, I know we get calls, I get calls from council members, and then we send it out and try to get special attention to that. In reality, that's screwed up the priority system, unfortunately. But at the same time, we can't tell you, says, well, thank you very much, but just wait. And out of respect, it's a courtesy. Constituents got to you, and we want to be responsive. So we try to shuffle crews together, try to send them in that direction. That's exactly how we're doing it. But we got valve leaks out there. We got leaks out, in the grassy area and all that. We know they exist because they are in our system. The issue is they low down the priority list. We never got to them. That's very unfortunate. I wish I have enough resources to handle all the backlogs without being prompt. But that's the reality we're dealing with, and that's what millions.
And that's where I'm getting at. So for these kind of things, because we actually had one. I didn't even think about that. Had one on my street that was such low priority. I literally told them, just get to it when you can get done all the serious stuff. But then what happened is it actually popped on us because they were so focused on all the other important things that had to happen. what kind of resources do you guys need as far as crews to actively deal with these things? Where are we falling short? Where's the investment currently versus where we need to be to deal with the amount of issues that we have?
So, well, that's precisely the single factor why we're asking for water rate increases year after year after year. It's really for all these capital programs. We finally, and I can't comment on before I got here, but I know now we have a 15-year miles or 15 miles per year goal because we got 1,500 miles of pipelines inside the city. We want to get that onto the industry standard. Every 100 years you replace the pipe because the pipe cannot last forever. We never have the plan. Our plan was when it breaks, we fix it. So now we have an asset management plan. We literally laid out priority. We need to get to it. So what I'm saying is that the number of breaks is going to continue to go up because our system is getting old. But at the same time, our number of miles replaced as time goes on, is going to go up. Eventually, we're going to come to an equilibrium. We're going to begin to see the downturn in terms of water main breaks, leaks, and so on, all that. But we are far, far, far from that day. But we all know, how excited people get when we talk about water rate increases. But unfortunately, we need to borrow money to fix these, and then that's where the money comes from because we're enterprise.
Ms. Chow, and this is really, I guess, a question better fit for the administration or the budget. Knowing the issues that we have with this, and as you know, this is a big issue for me. Have we ever sat down with like our federal representatives and asked for them to try to help us out in this? Especially since we have the best businessman ever as president, and I say that in a very sarcastic way. Have we gotten to that point? I know that there's a group of mayors that are arguing for infrastructure improvements in the city. I myself, as the vice chair of the National League of Cities, a large cities coalition will be doing that and continuing to do that this year. But have we done that, and what has been the response?
Yeah, so I would say I spent last 20 years of my career advocating that there got to be federal funds involved. When we first started 20 years ago, when they talk about infrastructure renewal, right? All people talk about bridges and roads. They weren't even talking about bridges until the bridge collapsed, right? Now, we are speeding ahead these days. In the last few years, at least now the word water infrastructure is beginning to appear. And I would tell you, I spent lots of times advocating. 2 weeks ago, I was down in D.C. on Capitol Hill talking to representatives and senators about infrastructure renewal, the fundings, and so on, all that. I'm sitting on a number of the professional boards as a board directors. We are advocating on the Hill in a very aggressive manner, but at the end of the day, what the people come up with, ideas come up with, let's tap into the private fund, right? We all know private fund, you're borrowing someone looking to make a profit, right. And so that means the interest rate is going to be higher, and then we still have to pay back. So that doesn't really help us. So we are now pushing very hard. We were the very first one of the 12 entity that received this WIFIA loan, the Water Infrastructure Finance loan, $200 million, ultra low interest, and then that is helping us. But that's funding or resources coming out of Treasury. It's U.S. Treasury-backed loans to us. And we're going to continue to push that. So we're looking for all variety of grants, low-interest loans, state revolving funds, all kinds of things. The private dollar, unfortunately, eventually we're going to have to get there because it's just our needs is so great. And we asked for $1.2 billion from the WIFIA. We got 200 million. I'm very thankful we got 200, but our needs is far, far more than what's given to us. But we are very aggressively advocating and voicing our needs out there. And because we are a city that we know is a high poverty line percentages and the citizens out there, we're very, very mindful that we had to make it affordable, and we need federal government's help. And I testify on the Hill numerous times to that exact same point. But I'm looking at the glasses half full, because I'm encouraged. At least now people are talking about, in the same sentence, in terms of infrastructure, water is beginning to appear, which is great.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Councilman Slifer. Oh, you're good? Okay. Okay. If there are no other questions, thank you.
Thank you
Director
very
Chow.
much. Thank you for
all
this
your staff.
opportunity.
I do want to say, before you leave, that I want to give kudos to Mr. Ragsdale and his crew. They're spot on. Anytime we need anything over in West Baltimore, they're right on it. So.
I think I got a lot of superstars, and
Yeah,
and
you
there's
do.
a lot of
You do.
superstars behind them.
But I wanted to make sure I gave him a shout out.
We thank you for the positive comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This committee is recessed until tomorrow morning at 9.